Hey everyone, so real quick, the content creator support actually refreshed. So if you did not extend your support and you want to continue supporting my channel, you have to go back in and re-support. So you got to go in and you got to look up my name under the supporter category here, connect with a creator, and then type in Zep YouTube. If you do that, then you can continue your support for me if you want to. Just wanted to throw it out there. So thanks again. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another King Arthur Legends Rise video. So in a couple days, guys, we are getting Clan Wars. This is really exciting. I think it's going to be a pretty big update. On top of that, we're getting a hard mode of Forbidden Dungeon, which is also really cool. So two big updates, which I think was really needed. I've seen a lot of negativity lately about new content. So the fact that they're releasing two big features, I think is really nice, and I'm excited about it. So today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the strategy of Clan Wars, and I've got a list of heroes that I really don't think people should underestimate. It's a long list, typical with my videos, as you know. I had one commenter say that he watches my videos at 2 times speed. That's probably really good for people's sanity if you want to take his advice, but... without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so Clan Wars. This is something that is like a siege style. I don't know if people have played other games that have this, but it looks really cool. So what you have here is a castle, your main castle. I don't know if there's going to be a main defense for that. I assume there is. Maybe your strongest PvP member of your clan. And then along the way, you have these footholds, these little towers that people have to get through, or they get additional bonuses if they clear multiple footholds. The strategy for this is still kind of undetermined, but it does look fun and interesting. So it looks like with these footholds, they're going to get additional bonuses. At least that's what it looks like to me. So here, this looks like additional critical strike damage. I think that's what Arthur's passive looks like. I think that's what that buff is. Additional healing, maybe, or health, additional defense. They might have a barrier. So it's not going to be as simple as you take, a team or an arena team and you just go in and fight other arena teams. I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think there's going to be special cases. So you can't just rely around speed. Now, some of the footholds will have speed in mind. So whenever I'm talking about these heroes, I just want people to understand that. So it's not just going to be a simple arena setup. I think you're going to have special conditions. All right. So with that, let's talk about some of these heroes that kind of get around that strategy, or what you should be looking for that are a little bit more underrated. We're going to go to the codex for this. Now, this list isn't going to include normal legendaries that everyone knows are good. There's been tons of Anya videos showing how crazy her counterattack damage is. Sergio and his Fire Relic, obviously great boost to people's attack gauge. You have Urin, who's amazing with damage. Gillian, great support hero. Bedivere, huge damage. People like that. Guinevere, I'm not going to list in here. Morgan, Merlin. These are the people that I think a lot of people maybe underestimate, go under the radar, and could be incorporated in a really cool strategy. So we're going to go down the list. We're going to do legendaries, rares, uncommons, and there's actually 2 commons that I think are really good. So starting with the legendaries. First one is Clarissa. Clarissa is amazing. She's very, very good in arena. And she also has the benefit of being in the Serpent favor. If you guys don't know, these individual favors actually have these centric abilities tied to them. And Serpent is speed. So if you look at heroes like Clarissa, you see her attack speed, it's 129. That's absolutely insane. If you look at it in comparison to somebody like Guinevere, who's in the Hound favor, her attack speed's 90. But that's because the Hound favor, they focus on defense-centric abilities. So they're going to be more defense-minded, tankier. whereas the Serpent favor is going to be more speed focused. Now, there's a great video put out by Loki Magics, which I've mentioned multiple times on here. If you see, someone in the Serpent favor, they have the ability to get one of these blue pieces here with attack speed as like an additional stat, but only on the keepsakes. So Serpent favor heroes will be the fastest. You won't be able to outspeed them. You really won't. If you're going up against someone with similar account power than you, they're farming dungeons and keepsakes and all those things, you're just not going to outspeed them. So just kind of keep that in mind. I did want to reference that. So Clarissen's going to be very fast. On the surface, she looks like a damage dealer, right? She does, some pretty decent damage. Her fire relic is her baseline relic. She puts defense decrease, high percentages. She also has a move called Jaw Twister, which is similar to Bedivere's passive one, where you're doing an additional attack and ignoring defense. So she looks like a damage dealer. However, if Clarissen has her Chivalry 3, she has this ability where when she uses her skill 2, she grants all allies crit damage increase 2 for 2 turns and charges their attack gauge by 40%. So it's like a mini Sergius in his Flame Relic. But it's crazy damage amplification. So she gives all allies crit damage increase 2. And if you look at her skill 2, which this triggers off of, she also gives them critical strike rate increase. So she's buffing their crit damage and their crit rate. So you can really have some terrifying damage dealers built because you don't have to build them with as much crit rate, and they get that huge additional damage boost, while her herself is also doing some really good damage. But if you put her in a really fast, speedy set, you can use her Chivalry 3, boost everyone's attack gauge, and amplify the damage. So if you see Clarissen with Chivalry 3s on defense, kind of beware, because that's probably what they're using her for. Next is Lancelot. So Lancelot's a big DOT guy, really good in PvE. However, he has a very, very high percent chance to stun someone. So this is single target. However, we all know how much of a menace Anya is. Anya has crazy damage on her counterattack. So the fact that people are certainly going to be using her, if you end up stunning her with Lancelot, she will not counter. So I think high percent abnormal status heroes, which we'll be kind of talking about with the rest of this list, should not go unnoticed. And Lancelot has one of the higher percentages. He also has an attack speed increase in all battles. So this is really awesome. I don't know how it's going to work with heroes like Rosier or Cormac, who have a attack speed increase in arena. I don't know if clan versus clan is going to be treated as arena. Sometimes these games are wonky with that, but Lancelot might be the only person that has an attack speed up for all heroes. So he can make people very, very fast, along with that really high percent stun chance. So don't sleep on Lancelot. Gawain is another one that I think this might be his time to shine. So all of his passives tie to like 1 or 2 turns within the battle. After that, they go away. So hit accuracy increase. He can change the weather, which I think is going to be a big deal as well. I think a lot of people are going to have weather change heroes that manipulate speed and their damage output and damage taken. So if you can change that, I think those heroes also should not be underrated whenever it comes to this guild versus guild. So he gains damage dealt increase. This is all tied to chivalries as well. And then he gets this blessing ability, which makes him immune to debuff and abnormal status. So even on a defense setting, he can actually be pretty good because you can't stun him or control him, or there's a possibility that you might not be able to knock him out easily if he doesn't have decreased defense on him or anything of those or anything of that nature. He also pumps out some okay damage when it's tied to, someone like Bedivere or Cormac in the Ice Relic. It's not really there, but Gawain, I think, has the ability to shine here just because he can really inflict a lot of damage on his maybe first attack or second attack. After that, he kind of falters. But all of those things encompass, changing the weather, having that blessing ability. I think he might be a sleeper pick. All right, next is Claudus. I think Claudus is going to be pretty solid here. She's not super fast. However, for the stag, well, I don't know why it says stag. She's in Hound. That's weird. It says stag here. But anyway, her attack speed is actually kind of decent. And she also gets a speed boost in the heat and day. I think this is just heat. So if you pair her with someone like Gawain, she'll get an additional 10% speed. Or 10 speed. I think it's 10 speed. So with that, she's also one of these heroes that has an AoE attack speed increase for your entire team, which could make the difference in the speed race. She also has the ability to reduce everyone's attack gauge by 20%. So it really is kind of like a pseudo Morgan. Morgan, again, is in the Serpent favor, so she's always going to be outspeeding Claudus. But there's some possibilities to maybe get around that, with changing the weather. I also don't know what kind of factors are going to come in with those footholds. So there is a possibility that this can be a really big skill to let the rest of your team really go in and go first. And then also she has single target attack gauge reduction, things of that nature. Can be pretty good. So the last thing to mention is she does have a 100% chance to do abnormal status if this is skilled up. I'm not saying you should use your skill ups on Claudus. However, it does need to go without mentioning that she does have that 100% chance to inflict the normal status. And then last in the legendaries is Lot. I think a lot of people know about Lot. However, if you don't, on his Fire Relic, he has an 80% chance to inflict Oblivion. He is the only person, I believe, in the game that has the AoE Oblivion. There might be one other person that does Oblivion, but Lot has AoE Oblivion, which completely nullifies passive skills. So, it's going to stop Bedivere from doing his additional attack. It's going to stop Clarissan from doing her additional attack. It's going to stop the abnormal status heals from Gillian. All of the passive, attack gauge boost decreases from Gillian. So he could be a really nice counter to some of those heroes and shouldn't be slept on. So that's it for the legendaries. Now for the rares. Again, we're not going to mention some of the most notable heroes, your Kays, your Arthurs, your Frost Relic Cormacs, and your Rosiers. Also Turin, Sarah, people like that, not going to mention. We're trying to find the heroes that people kind of sleep on. One of those heroes is Cryaden. She's got a couple good things going on. She changes the weather, always big, and it's at the start of battle. She also gets some pretty nice buffs. So she gains effect accuracy increase 2, which is really nice because she puts up abnormal statuses. And she also is meant to be, kind of a bruiser. If Anya is with her, she gets attack increase 2 and defense increase 2 for 5 turns, which is a long time. She also has this ability called Heartless Strike, where if the weather's night, and whoever she's attacking has abnormal status, she does an AoE with 8% damage based on the target's max HP. So it's like really good chip damage. I think she's going to be a really great choice to take down tank teams. I think those tank teams with, the defense increase or additional health on those footholds, this is where this hero is really going to shine. On top of that, she does have some decent high percentages on her on her Flame Relic and on her Storm Relic. High percent chance to do these abnormal statuses. She also decreases attack gauge, but it ties in to her passive because she does need to attack someone with that abnormal status to trigger the Heartless Strike, which is a huge skill. You're also fully charging her attack gauge. So you kind of loop back around to have her just do really good damage and kind of loop around to this passive being off cooldown. So I would not sleep on Caden. Someone who actually pairs well with Caden is Arduin. So on Arduin's passives, she has the ability to inflict polymorph, which is a type of abnormal status. So if she inflicts this polymorph on somebody, and then you go in with your Caden, you then have the ability to trigger that Heartless Strike. On top of that, she does really good damage. She has high multipliers on her skill 2. So she has this 393% attack, but then on top of that, her passive is tied to this skill 2, which does another attack for another 80%. So this is kind of like 473%, which is really nice. And then also has the chance to inflict polymorph. And anytime an ally's hit, she has the ability to also put up another abnormal status in the Secret Fey art, which inflicts what? It's some kind of infatuation. If you have her Chivalry 8 as well, she counterattacks using her skill 2. So she's going to pair well with a couple other people on here that I'm going to mention. The obvious is Anya, because Anya puts up the counterattack on her skill 2, and also her passive 2. Just her passive 2, not her skill 2. Sorry. Her skill 2 triggers her passive 2. Yes. I'm all over the place, guys. Next is Ralph. So Ralph actually is going to pair really nicely with an uncommon. However, I think Ralph can really spiral. The thing is with this guild versus guild, you need a lot of heroes. You can build up to, I think, 7 teams. So that's 28 heroes that you're going to need built. However, Ralph has some really cool passives that whenever an ally dies, he buffs himself, he buffs his whole team with a bunch of things. And then on top of that, if he's the last one standing, he has the ability to do this really huge attack called Sucker Punch, which is an AoE with really high multipliers, and it removes buffs from the enemies. So I think there's a possibility that you can pair Ralph with a couple of these other heroes that we're going to talk about whenever we get to the uncommons and commons as bait. Because sometimes in these games, the AI isn't very smart. So what they'll do is they'll go after the weakest hero. So if you have a level 1 hero that you don't really have built up, but they do something special at the start of the battle, I think this can pair really well with Ralph to have him be the last one standing and just nuke. That's theory. However, there's a lot of things that are unknown with guild versus guild, so a lot of this kind of has to be theory, but I really like that strategy, and I'm kind of excited to utilize it. Next is Clementine. So Clementine, I think, can be a pseudo Morgan as well. She has tons of attack gauge decrease. A couple, I think most of it's single target. Yeah, this is all single target. However, on her passive, her second passive, whenever she's using her skill 3, she has the ability to do an AoE, attack gauge reduction. So, again, even though she's not one of the faster heroes, she does have a Chivalry 8, where anytime an ally attacks, she has the ability to trigger that AoE ability that reduces attack gauge. So if you pair her with a bunch of really fast Serpent favor heroes, there's a possibility that she triggers that, reduces all the attack gauge, and then you just snowball from there. I also think she can be a pretty decent damage dealer. This ability ties into her effect accuracy. It's similar to Anya, where Anya does additional damage based on her effect resistance. Clementine's the same way, but with effect accuracy, which is really great because you need effect accuracy to reduce people's attack gauges. So yeah, I don't think people should really sleep on Clementine with this guild versus guild either. Next is Akon. So Akon has been known to be a niche character for Frozen Plains, and that's in a PvE setting. However, from a PvP setting, Akon does have some high percentage chance to inflict abnormal status. Sleep on the Fire Relic, and then also sleep on the Storm Relic at a 75% chance clip, and then this one is 80% chance. On top of that, he's also one of the only heroes that does an AoE recovery disruption. So if you're going up against a tankier team that does a lot of heals with Gillian or whatever, Sarah, Turin, all of those things, this can be a pretty big disruptor to that. When he's Chivalry 8 as well, he can put that stuff up at the start of the battle. So this is pretty neat. He's a really interesting hero for this because he does a lot of unique things that not a lot of heroes can do. He also has this feint ability as well, where if he's attacking somebody that has sleep, he inflicts this suspended animation where they are forever tied to that until they're hit, which is interesting. So yeah, Akon I think is a bit of a sleeper when it comes to control. Next is Gareth. Gareth is, I think, really cool as a niche one and done kind of hero because he puts up this ignore resistance on himself. This, you don't have to worry about anyone having really high effect resistance, aka Anya. If you bring in Gareth, you can 100% control Anya, which will not trigger her counterattack. And this hero has I think it's one of the only heroes that has this bind, especially at 100% clip, and with a high percent. So you can build this hero with really high damage, utilize the bind, which is for 3 turns. That's really high. So high damage dealer and can completely eliminate a threat for 1 turn at the start of the battle, which in a lot of these settings is the defining factor if you win or not. So I do not want people to sleep on Gareth. I think it's going to be a really good hero for problematic setups in Guild versus Guild. Next is Urin. I think Urin is going to be a great tank hero. He pumps out a lot of damage. He also has some really good debuffs. He puts up an AoE counterattack. It is at a chance. However, giving everyone counterattack, I think, is a really big buff, which is why it's only at 50%. So if you pair him with Anya, if you pair him with Arduin, and maybe Caden, you're going to be pumping out a lot of damage while also keeping himself healthy, and he scales off of HP on his other attacks. So I think he's probably going to be a commonly used hero in defense for the HP, footholds if they get that buff. So I watch out for Urin. I think he's certainly going to be a sleeper pick. Next up is Bodwin. I think Bodwin's going to pair well with Guinevere. He has share damage, which I think is only on a couple other heroes, but they're uncommons, so they're not really used as much. Bodwin has a lot to offer. He's got some really cool passives. He can remove abnormal status. He can also put up a huge defense increase 3. That is a really big buff. On top of that, he puts up a shield on 2 random allies at the start of the battle. So if someone's going in there with a cleave team, Bodwin can kind of counter that with incorporating that HP shield. And then the abnormal status immunity, I think, can be pretty nice if someone's also bringing in somebody like Gareth. Gareth ignores effect resistance. However, if you have the immunity, that doesn't really matter. Gareth still can't land stuff like that. Now, this is random, so if you're trying to have him be there for like an Anya or whatever, it might not always work, but a lot of times RNG is what makes the best defenses. Also, if you have him Chivalry 8, he has that really amazing skill called Divine Light where he just removes all debuffs, abnormal status, and DOTs, while also putting up received damage and that share damage with defense decrease too. So I think He's going to pair really, really nicely in tank teams. He's probably going to be super annoying, to be honest. And then the last one for rares is Boars. I think Boars, I talked about him with the Chivalry video that I did on Saturday. But yeah, he's the only one that can grant allies 100% counterattack, and it's for 2 turns. So on his skill 3, he grants all of his allies counterattack damage increase while also giving them counterattack damage. If Boars gets off his skill 3 against people, if your team is like still somewhat healthy, it will end the game. It will, because pairing Boars with Arduin and Anya, I think that is so toxic. It's just having him be able to go first or get off his skill, because his speed is quite slow. So that is something to mention, but I think he could be very, very strong if built correctly. So that's it for the rares. For the uncommons, there's a couple decent ones here, which surprised me. So Kich, I think that's how you say this person's name. This hero is one of the few heroes that has overhealing. So if somebody has abnormal status or something like that, you can actually heal them up, remove that, and get them almost back to, maybe half, 3/4 health. Really huge. This is something that not a lot of heroes have, and it's a pretty sizable heal, because overhealing itself also heals. So this 9% may look low, but with the addition of the overhealing recovery, this is something that heals at a pretty good clip. And on top of that, this hero has an ability called Root Binding. It's 30% chance, but it's an AoE, so you can completely control the entire enemy team with this abnormal status. This is a really strong ability, and I don't think it should go unnoticed. On top of that, there's another hero that can change the weather. So you can change the weather to heat whenever you're using that AoE abnormal status ability. So don't overlook that here. On top of that, even if you build this hero for Guild versus Guild, this hero is also very good in the Stag Favor dungeon. So something else to mention. Now Luke is very interesting. So not only does he have a big heal on his 3rd skill, he also has an AoE attack decrease. That's at 100% chance clip, and it's for 3 turns, so it's a long duration. A lot of these heroes have like really, really strong skills that you would never know. But the reason why I like him a lot is his passive 2. His passive 2 is really cool. Whenever he attacks with his skill 1, he charges all of your allies' attack gauge by 50%. So you don't have to waste a whole lot of vigor to activate this. It is on a cooldown, so you can't spam it like you can with somebody like Sergio with his Flame Relic. But as we've mentioned earlier in this video, sometimes you just need that first turn. So this, I think, is a crazy skill. And people should take advantage of this. So not only do you have, like, the thing that I like about Luke is he's got a bunch of other things going for him. It's not just his passive. It's not like, oh, use his skill 1 and then you're done. No, he's got the AoE attack decrease and a huge heal. So he can be used in tank teams. He can be used in cleave teams. I think there's a lot of things that Luke can do. Next, we have Jack. Now, I've talked about Jack before, but I do want to mention him again just in case people haven't seen that video. This guy is a serpent, okay? And I've shown a video in Arena talking about cleave teams that can use him. So he's got very high speed, 113 for an uncommon, which is very fast. That's faster than most legendary heroes, unless they're in the serpent favor. He also has this big attack gauge boost, 70%. You can make some of your slowest heroes go just by using his skill 2 and get this attack gauge off. On top of that, I think he's just a great support hero because he also has the ability to remove abnormal status from all allies. So if someone goes in with an AoE, stuns or freezes 2 or 3 of your allies, but not Jack, he'll be able to activate this Honing the Blade, and everyone is tip-top with an AoE shield. This is really awesome. He does have an okay ability in his skill 3, which is the attack decrease for 4 turns. Again, really long time. I'm not quite sure how they do some of this stuff, considering, legendaries will have skills like this and it's for 1 turn, which is so annoying. But anyway, there are some decent applications for Jack as well. But I think most people knew about him. Next is Alan. So I really like Alan for his passive 1. So his passive 1 at the start of the battle inflicts attack speed decrease on 2 random enemies for 3 turns. I think this could just completely sway the outcome of a match. If you were going up against Morgan, like it's a Morgan versus Morgan, and you're trying to win the speed battle, if you're lucky enough for Alan to put up the attack speed decrease on their Morgan, it could be the defining factor for your Morgan winning the speed battle. So Alan is kind of like Luke, where he's got a great passive, but he also has some really other good skills. He has an AoE attack speed decrease at a 90% clip, which is great. And he also has an AoE attack gauge reduction where everyone can be reduced by 30%. This is huge. 80% chance to do that on an uncommon. This is a really strong character. If you're going up against speed teams, you're trying to outspeed, Alan could certainly be your choice. Next up is Argus. So Argus, I think, is a bit underrated. He's similar to Akon, but Argus has an AoE recovery disruption as well, similar to Akon, but he has it at a higher percent chance rate at 80%. This is really strong. On top of that, he has recovery disruption for 3 turns anytime he's attacking. This is on a 3-turn cooldown, so if you want to specifically target somebody, he also has that ability. Sometimes the AoE isn't as great because you have heroes like Anya that put up the counterattacks, so you want to be specific with who you're targeting so you can still get that off. And then he also has this ability where he gives all of your allies Pierce. So this can be a defining factor as well to kind of go after some of those tankier teams and inflict as much damage as possible, possibly OTKing one of those allies or enemies that you really need to get rid of. So I think Argus is a bit of a sleeper pick as well for those tankier teams that are just trying to continue to heal. Now, Jan, this guy I think is certainly going under the radar. He also has one of those passives where at the start of the battle, he inflicts defense decrease 2 for 2 turns. This is really cool. Sadly, this is just one person. It's not AoE. I think that would be crazy busted, but it is one person. However, his second passive is also cool. And this is the hero that I was mentioning with Ralph. So not only does this guy comes in and he puts defense down on somebody for 2 turns. Then when he dies, he gives all of your allies attack increase 1. And it's for 4 turns. So buffs in this game actually stack. Ralph gives himself buffs as well, like attack increase, attack speed. So he'll get an additional attack increase whenever Jan dies. I really like Jan to pair with Ralph. Go in, level 1. He puts up all of his debuffs with the defense down, and then he's one of the first targets. Even if he's not a target, if someone has an AoE, similar to like Morgan, where she goes in and she tries to reduce the attack gauge, it'll kill Jan, buff up Ralph, give him attack speed increase 3, attack increase. And if you're pairing Ralph with, a bunch of other heroes that are really weak, Ralph might be able to jump the line still because of the attack speed increase 3. So I'm really excited about that. On top of that, Jan also gives additional buffs to specific characters that we've mentioned on this list. Urians, which he gives Vanguard to. So Urians gains this ability where whenever Urians attacks, he has the chance to apply taunt. Urians has counterattack. So anytime Urians is counterattacking, he now turns into a control hero. So this is also really cool. And then the charge order is put on Lot. When he attacks, he recharges a random ally's attack gauge by 100%. So if Lot goes and he attacks, he's going to give someone an instant turn. These are crazy buffs by Yon. Really flying under the radar. Just the passives alone are great. And then last for the uncommons is Gwyn. I think Gwyn puts out some real solid damage. His multipliers are good. So he has an AoE at 180%. His Fire Relic is a 297% multiplier. This is very strong. He also has AoE depletion, which reduces vigor. I think this can be a really good debuff. I think a lot of heroes and enemy teams really depend on turn order and stacking vigor to let heroes like, Cormac or Merlin use their skill 3 all the time. Same thing with someone like Sergio in the Flame Relic. I think depletion can really counter, those types of team setups. So if you have someone like Gwyn, you have a decent multiplier on his skill 3 to target, specific storm heroes, maybe like K, to possibly one-shot. And then also, have that depletion rate. But yeah, he's just a damage outputter. And at an uncommon, I think that's really rare. It is a little tougher to build the uncommons because their base stats are just low. However, he does have some decent attack. So, yeah, I think Gwyn is kind of a sleeper pick. And then last but not least, there are 2 commons that are actually quite good. The first one is Andrew. This guy, look at this passive. At the start of battle, 100% chance to inflict defense decrease 1 on all enemies for 4 turns. This is such a crazy skill. This is what I'm talking about. You can use someone like Andrew, and you can use someone like Yon with Ralph, where they just go in and they put on all of these things. They don't even need to be built. You just have to have effect accuracy on them, and then they can die, and they've done their thing. Meanwhile, boosting up Ralph, right? I love heroes like this. Like, fly under the radar, put up really good debuffs, and then they die. They already did their thing. Because you don't have to put a whole bunch of resources into them either for them to be effective, which is great. So yeah, I really like Andrew. I think he's really solid, especially if you're going up against someone like Cormac in the Frost Relic. Like, that's their main damage dealer. His damage scales off his defense. So his attack and defense are really, really important. So if you're putting up that defense decrease, the Cormac's going to hit a lot less. And then last but not least is Sergio. So Sergio, another serpent, right? Pretty quick. A little zippy for a common there. He also has really good passive. At the start of battle, grants 2 random allies attack speed increase for 3 turns. This can be, again, kind of the defining factor for you to outspeed opposing Morgans. This might also be important for your Ralph to kind of do his thing and just, spiral. I am 100% going to build Ralph with those 3 heroes that I mentioned. It's going to be Andrew, Sergio, and Yon. And I'm going to see what he can do in Arena. I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, and then he also has... right here. Look at this ability. Attack speed decrease 2 for 2 turns. This is 100%. This is 100% chance to do this. And he's Serpent. So the possibility of him going first is quite high. I really, really like these 2 commons, and I'm kind of excited to build them. I do not have their chivalries, but it's all just like... Oh, no. See, this is one that matters. Yeah, so Sergio actually gets attack speed 12. He gets 12 attack speed if you chivalry him up. So that's really important. But anyway, yeah, guys, that's the list. I'm really excited about CVC. let me know what you guys think of these heroes. The fact I wanted to give you a lot of uncommons and commons because they don't take a whole lot of resources to build up. So even if we're wrong, it's not like a huge deal. But I do see the potential with these heroes, and I'm really excited to use them. I'm really excited about Guild versus Guild, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.